Dear students, in this module, we will be talking about the appropriateness and the uses of non-parametric statistics. Now, in case of parametric statistics, there are certain stringent assumptions which we would have to fulfill for certain data sets. Otherwise, we cannot apply those parametric statistical tests due to the data which may not conform to those assumptions. So for that matter, we must have certain alternatives that are known as non-parametric statistics. Now, my dear students, non-parametric statistical tests are usually being followed on to the qualitative data. And by qualitative data, we mean that the data can only be measured. That data can only be measured using, through observation. If we can, feel the presence or absence of that kind of data. So that data will be known as qualitative data, or we can also call it as categorical data for that matter. Usually when your data is of, type that there are certain ranks in your data, or they are being, taken according to certain categories, and those categories are being ordered. So even in that case, we follow the non-parametric statistics. So, and sometimes students, if we talk about normality assumption in parametric tests, then when sample sizes are small, usually the cutoff value in statistics is 30. So even if for some data sets, the sample sizes are small, still we can't ensure the normality in the data. So for that matter, again, we would have to go for the alternative approach, that is the use of non-parametric statistical tests. We would be talking about certain examples where even the hypothesis that does not involve the population parameter. So we can't actually test that statement about the population using the parametric test. So again, we would have to employ the non-parametric tests. Or sometimes, students, there is less information that is being available about those samples. So we can't actually apply the parametric test. Or there are certain situations, for instance, if the results are available in hurry and we don't have time for those tedious calculations again, we can go for the non-parametric test that involves less calculations as compared to the parametric tests. Students, there are certain advantages of non-parametric tests over the parametric tests. So we will be discussing them one by one. For example, if we're talking about most non-parametric procedures, they rely on very few assumptions. Whereas the parametric tests that have certain, stringent kind of assumptions which are to be fulfilled by the data onto which we are going to apply those. So the chance of, these non-parametric tests being improperly used in certain situations, that become very low for that matter. Students, similarly, for some non-parametric procedures, the calculations are quickly required and we don't have time, and especially when the computers are not available और हमें by hand calculations करना पड़ती हैं. तो उस केस में non-parametric test को हम easily calculations करके apply कर सकते हैं. Researchers, for instance, the ones who don't have, concept about mathematics or some rigorous procedures about statistics, they usually find it difficult to understand the concepts within the parametric, test. So even for them, it is quite easy to apply the non-parametric test for very simple, sort of data sets which does not involve any rigorous sort of calculations. इसी तरह से students, non-parametric procedure may be applied onto those data sets where the data is measured onto the week scale. For example, if we are talking about nominal data, or if we are talking about ordinal data in comparison to the interval or ratio scale of measurement, so वो nominal या ordinal data अगर आपके पास है, usually they are being considered as the weak scale as compared to others. So for even those data sets, you can apply the non-parametric test. And sometimes, students, there are situations where you would have the count data or there are ranks that are available. So even for that data, we cannot apply the parametric approaches. So we will have to apply the non-parametric test to test the assumptions about the population. There is a list of tests that we will be practicing for various kind of real life examples. So these are some of the tests we will be talking about later, students. Sign test, for example, that is being used for a single population testing. Mann-Whitney U test or the Wilcoxon rank sum test. Then Wilcoxon signed rank test, which is being used for 2 data sets. Kruskal-Wallis test, that is being used for testing the equality of several medians. Now students, मैं आपकी attention यहाँ draw करा दूँ इस चीज़ के लिए कि आपने पीछे जो parametric test के introductions देखे हैं, parametric tests usually take into account the arithmetic mean, but the non-parametric test of the procedures, they would be talking about the median, the testing about the median. So ये जितने भी tests हैं, इनमें whether we are talking about a single sample or we are talking about more than 2 samples or 2 samples, for instance, we would be taking into account the median testing. Similarly, there is that test which is named as Freeman test, जो कि 2 paired samples जिनको हम कहते हैं, 2 samples which are the related samples, उनकी testing के लिए use करेंगे हम. Or if you are interested in calculating the relationship between the 2 data sets, जहाँ रैंक किया हुआ है आपने डाटा को, तो स्टूडेंट्स उसके दरमियान 2 डाटा सेट्स के जो कि रैंक डाटा सेट्स हैं और रिलेशनशिप आइडेंटिफाई करने के लिए we will be talking about Spearman's rank correlation test. So students, we would be talking about these tests, their usefulness, and on which type of data sets we would have to apply in our upcoming lectures.